Hi, this is a tutorial on how to make a window mask for the hearing impaired. You will need the 4 pieces of fabric, 2 printed and 2 plain, plus a piece of vinyl, some 2-sided tape, and some ties or some bias tape. We start off with the 4 pieces of fabric, 2 printed and 2 plain. And what we're going to do first is we are going to iron. We have pre-made cuts into the pieces of fabric, and we are going to iron in 1/4 of an inch where the pre-cuts are made in all 4 pieces of fabric, so that they all are ironed in. And we're also going to iron in 1/4 of an inch on the flat end, so that all 4 pieces of fabric look like this. Then we are going to place the fabric face together on the printed fabric and the solid, and we are going to sew a seam 1/4 of an inch on both the plain and the printed. Then we're going to iron the seams open on both the plain and the printed. Then iron your little 1/4 inch seams folds back. They are just a little bit bowed out a little bit. Once you do that, then you're going to place them facing together. Sew a 1/4 of an inch across the top, and then you will turn that right side out and iron across the top of that, and you have your little window. That's where our little piece of vinyl will go. So far it should look like this. The bottom is open where you ironed that little 1/4 inch up. Then we're going to take our mask, open it up, and here's where your piece of vinyl comes in. Your vinyl will have a marking on it with 2 little marks where the halfway mark is. We're going to take our 2-sided tape. I put a piece across the top, across the bottom. It's exactly the same, so there really isn't a top and a bottom. Now, you're going to have to look inside here where your seam is, right in the middle. Line up this mark with that seam, and the ink mark goes right inside. You don't want the ink mark to show, so you want to line that straight up with the center mark there, and do the same at the bottom where you've ironed that 1/4 inch in where that seam is. Line that up and press that 2-sided tape in, and then take some more tape and put it around the outside edges and line it up with the outside edges of where you've put that 1/4 inch fold in, and it will be bowed out. So once you get it all fitted in there like that, it will be bowed out. So don't be alarmed if your mask starts to bow out like this. When you get it all done, it will be like this, and it like I said, it will be bowed out. I mean, when you turn it around to the front, you'll notice it's bowed out. And then once you get that done, if you put the tape on the edge, there'll be some sticky still right here. And then you want to take your solid color and line it up, and you can just stick it so that it lines right up with the other fabric, right at the edges, and it'll stick right on that tape that was sticking out from the edge of your vinyl. And once you get that lined up and stuck on there, then you can go to your sewing machine, and once you turn it around, you'll see that it's lined up with the vinyl on the front, and you won't be able to see your ink marks. If you need to use a couple more pieces of tape, feel free. And then you will take your machine and run a seam around the outside edge right here, and it'll catch your lining on the inside, and it will line straight up. And then you will take this bottom edge where we have folded in and ironed that seam in, line those two up, and run a seam across the bottom to close up the bottom of it. And then we'll have these outside edges. And instead of putting pleats in, since we've tapered this, all you have to do is fold this in, take your ribbon. If your kit has ribbon in it, you just take one of the pieces of ribbon, fold it in half, and once you fold it in half, just separate it a little bit, put the ribbon in, make it so one comes out at that angle, one comes out at that angle, and run a seam across here, and right there's your ribbon. You're done with that. Do the same with the other end. If you receive bias tape, take your bias tape and do the same as you did with the ribbon. In half, spread it out a little bit, tuck it in here, run a seam across here, and with the bias tape you have to remember to run a seam across your down your bias tape so you close off that bias tape, because bias tape, remember, is open, so you'll need to run a seam down the bias tape to close it. But once you do that, your product is done, and you'll have your mask with your ties, and your mask is all done. And you have a mask for the hearing impaired. Thanks for watching.